Delaware. Well, it's that time of year again. Happy Black History Month. My name is Kesmira. You might remember me as your favorite art teacher. Today, we're going to talk about a few African American artists who deserve more recognition. First, let's talk about Beverly Lorraine Green. Beverly Lorraine Green was the first African American woman to be licensed as an architect in the United States. Some of her major projects include the Ida B. Wells Housing Project in Chicago, the Sarah Lawrence College in New York, and many, many more. Next, let's talk about Augusta Savage. Augusta Savage was an activist, a sculptor, and an educator. She owned a studio that's responsible for the education of artists who would be world-renowned, including but not limited to Jacob Lawrence, William ARTIS, and Ernest Chichlow. She worked for the equal rights of African Americans, and one of her most famous pieces is called Gaiman, created in 1929. But my favorite piece of hers is called The Harp, because it's an illustration of the Black national anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. Next, let's talk about Gordon Parks. Gordon Alexander Buchanan Parks was a photographer, an author, a film director, and a poet. He is best known for his photographs of poor Americans during the 1940s, and he also created a film genre, Blaxploitation. He was also responsible for creating the first feature film directed by a Black director and fully funded by a major Hollywood studio. He directed Shaft, y'all. Now let's talk about Archibald Motley. Archibald Motley was one of the major contributors of the Harlem Renaissance during the 1920s and 30s as a painter. Sparked by the Great Migration, the Harlem Renaissance was a time of rebirth of African American arts and culture. Motley created colorful works that perpetuated positive images of African Americans. As such, was the responsibility of artists who bought into the ideas of the New Negro movement during that time. One of my favorite works by Archibald Motley is called Barbecue, created in 1934, because it looks like a good time. Now let's talk about one of my favorite artists of all time, Palmer Hayden. Palmer Hayden was a watercolor artist and a military veteran. He was born Peyton Cole Hedgeman, but we know him as Palmer Hayden because his commanding officer could not pronounce his name, which was a common consequence of racism for African Americans during that time. Hayden created works that his critics might consider to perpetuate negative stereotypes of African Americans. One of my favorite works by Palmer Hayden is called The Watermelon Race because, however stereotypical, who doesn't love watermelon? In addition to that, post-Reconstruction, a lot of ex-slaves owned watermelon farms, and that was how they were able to support their families for generations. It's a part of our culture. My other favorite painting by Palmer Hayden is called Christmas from 1934 because it's such a sweet image and I love Christmas. So those were just a few African American artists who deserve more recognition. Do you have a favorite African American artist that I did not mention? If you do, comment their names below so that all of us are exposed to their artwork because that's why they create. Here's a list of more artists we are going to honorably mention because their artwork deserves more recognition too. Faith Ringgold, Elizabeth Catlett, Louis Mayu Jones, Kyra Walker, Jacob Lawrence, Aaron Douglas, Kehinde Wiley, Amy Sherald, Selma Burke, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Henry Ossawa Tanner, Edmonia Lewis, Allison Starr, Lorna Simpson, David Driskell, Clementine Hunter, Medavo Warwick Fuller, and so many more. Thank you for joining us today as we talked about African American artists who deserve more recognition. I encourage you to do a little bit more research for yourself. You might discover an art style or an artist that you didn't know about, and it could inspire you to do something amazing. My name is Kasmira. Happy Black History Month.